Hello and welcome to the Week 14 recap. This past week was championship week and it helped set us up for our playoff selection, which I don't agree with, but I don't think I'd agree with it no matter what they did. You can find a problem with pretty much any solution to this one. So we're going to go into this recap first. First on the list was number 17, Western Michigan versus Ohio. I picked Western Michigan to win this one, and they did. They completed their undefeated season. They are 13-0, and they are going to be playing for the Cotton Bowl. Next was number 8, Colorado versus number 4, Washington. I picked Washington to win that game, as they did. They pretty much murdered Colorado. However, Colorado was missing their starting quarterback. Next on the list was number 6, Wisconsin versus number 7, Penn State for the Big Ten Championship. I had Penn State winning this one, and it didn't look like I was going to be right in the first half. Wisconsin went up to a 28-7 lead at halftime, but Penn State made a mad comeback, outscored Wisconsin 31-3 in the second half to win the game 38-31. Next on the list was Temple versus number 19, Navy. I'd picked Navy to win this game, but Temple just outscored them, outpowered them, and Temple comes away with their first major conference win and their second 10-win season in a row. They have only had one 10-win season before this. Next was number 10, Oklahoma State at number 9, Oklahoma. I picked Oklahoma to win that game, and Oklahoma did, clinching the Big 12 title. Next was Baylor at number 16, West Virginia. I picked West Virginia to win that game, and they did, knocking Baylor to an even record of 6-6. Next on the list was number 1, Alabama at number 15, Florida, or versus number 15, Florida for the SEC championship game. I picked Alabama. They won it pretty handily. However, Florida gave them a scare pretty early, going up 7-0. But Alabama stormed back, won the game something like 54-14 or 16 or something like that. And last on the list, number 3, Clemson versus number 23, Virginia Tech. I had picked Clemson to win this game. However, it was a really close game. Clemson came out with the 42-35 win and literally came within a 1 yard of potentially losing the game. So there were 8 games I picked this week. I got 7 of them right, which puts me at an 87.5% correct rate this week. 207 of the 271 for the whole season puts me at a 76.4% correct rate. Now, here's where I want to talk a little bit about the playoffs. The official selection of the playoffs was number 1, Alabama, number 2, Clemson, number 3, Ohio State, and number 4, Washington. There's a few problems with this, but as I said earlier, there's problems no matter which way you do it. If with Ohio State in there, you've got Ohio State in the playoffs, even though they didn't win their conference, but Penn State did win the conference, and Penn State beat Ohio State, so you're not putting Penn State in the playoffs, but you're putting the team they beat in the playoffs. Seems kind of iffy. Now, on the other end, they make a big deal about strength of schedule, but Washington's out-of-conference strength of schedule was second to last in college football. They played 2 non-FCS teams, and Rutgers was their only FCS non-conference game. A Rutgers team who got shut out by 4 different teams in the Big Ten. So it doesn't look good on the resume for Washington. Yes, they are conference champs, but at the same point, like, it just doesn't, it's not a strong schedule. However, they do have a win over a top 10 team in Colorado. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Clemson made it, and nobody's really arguing about Clemson, but Clemson's resume is pretty weak if you look at it. Clemson does not have a win over a top 10 team all season. They've had close games. They lost to Pitt, but they have close games, and they've not beaten anyone in the top 10. So Penn State has played. They haven't even. That's the other thing. They haven't even played anyone in the top 10. It's not like Clemson played someone in the top 10 and lost to them. They haven't even played anyone in the top 10. Whereas Penn State, yes, they lost to Michigan and they lost to Pitt, but you can't hold Pitt against them if you're not holding it against Clemson. But they lost to Michigan, but they beat Ohio State and they beat Wisconsin. That's 2 top 10 teams they beat. So it doesn't make a lot of sense if we're emphasizing strength of schedule. So here's another issue, and why I think the case for 8 is so strong this year. If you did put Penn State in instead of Washington, then you're putting Penn State in, Washington's out, but you have Washington out and Ohio State still in. Ohio State creating a problem there because Ohio State's not a conference champion. But Washington is, and that's one of the criteria they look at as well. So I think the reason the case for 8 is so strong this year is not because the current situation is so terrible, but because every situation that could have occurred for the top 4 has too many questions and too many arguments against it. Whereas if you go to the top 8, you can go pretty far down in the top 8 and still make a case. For pointers, we've already made the case for Penn State. They've beaten Ohio State. They beat Wisconsin. They're doing really well right now. They're a good team. I think they would match up pretty well against some of the other teams in the playoffs. Michigan obviously would match up well. Michigan has that one loss earlier in the season to Iowa, or late in the season to Iowa, by 1 point that was a boneheaded mistake that got them in that position to let up the field goal. Then there's Wisconsin you can make a case for too. Wisconsin has 3 losses, a 7-point loss to Michigan, a 7-point loss in overtime to Ohio State, and a 7-point loss to Penn State in the championship game. So you can make a case for Wisconsin as well that they already match up pretty dang well against 3 of the teams ahead of them. Now, the only one who's a little iffy is Oklahoma. But, you know, Oklahoma is a conference champ, so you could make a case for them as well. I mean, you could pretty much make a case for anybody in the top 8. So I think that this year could be the year we look back and say, that's when the 8-team playoff was destined to happen. This is the year that made it happen. Whether it goes to 8 next year or a couple years down the road, I think this season will be the turning point for the 8-team playoffs. So thanks for tuning in, guys. If you like what I'm doing here, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. And I'll be back probably Friday with a video for the Army-Navy game and probably a little bit about the Heisman as well. So thanks for tuning in, and I'll catch you guys next time.